at the time, comes out and says, I don't think she was doing it on purpose. The coach says that. Go all the way to the front. This is how she plays. Look,
damn, girl.
She's obviously very sweet. She doesn't at all have any negative intent. Yeah, at all. She doesn't hit hard, and she plays very clean basketball.
Another white privilege.
And watch what she does to the eyes. You see?
Ooh, the play in the last game, I didn't see the play in real
That's
time.
her in the back.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
Went straight to a press conference.
So you can pause it right there.
And that's her right there.
That's her in the back, and that's the foul.
Here comes kindness.
I stand by them. I will always stand by them.
Amen.
Everybody else can go to hell.
Oh, wait a minute.
Kindness.
Wait a minute.
So you know what? We need kindness.
Grace.
They go high, you go.
Grace. Sounds like a wholesome Christian. And then she goes, hey, by the way, go to hell, and then you leave.
Walking,
talking contradiction.
Everybody else is trying to divide our locker room. No. Not having your players back will do quite the adequate job at doing that.
Patrick Bet David didn't waste any time. He pulled up the footage, looked directly into the camera, and said what many people were already thinking. Stephanie White watched that play unfold in real time, and rather than being honest about it at the time, she tried to backtrack days later once the backlash became too loud to ignore.
Dejanay Carrington clothesline from hell incident the other day, in which she came out and said, oh, Dejanay's she's not a dirty player. She just plays real hard. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, look, she turns into the Charlie Brown teacher pretty quickly with a lot of people. At least with me, she does. The moment I realize she's going to do it again and not back her own player, yeah, I'm out. I got to tell you, one of the most obvious traits of a terrible leader, not taking any responsibility.
Here's where it starts. DJ Carrington goes up for what appears to be a block attempt on Sophie Cunningham and instead catches her across the neck, sending Cunningham straight to the floor and forcing trainers to check on her courtside. The officials immediately rule it a flagrant 2, and Carrington is ejected before the broadcast even finishes showing the replay from a second angle.
Fired immediately, Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White walked past her own player Sophie Cunningham to check on Dejanay Carrington after the hard foul.
Nobody in that arena needed a slow-motion replay to know it looked bad. If you watch Stephanie White on the sideline the moment it happens, her eyes are fixed on the play. She's not looking at a clipboard. She's not talking to an assistant coach. She's watching it live as it unfolds just a few feet from her own bench. That detail matters because a few days later, that's the exact part of the story Stephanie White tried to quietly rewrite.
It was a hard foul. I don't think that Dejanay intentionally came out to get her across the neck like she did, but it did happen, and I thought it was the right call. But one of the things about Nay is that she's going to play her butt off, man. She's going to compete. Nobody's going to go walking in for a layup, and so I don't oppose the hard foul, but I also don't think that she intentionally went for the neck.
Right after the game, reporters asked Stephanie White about the foul, and she didn't hesitate. She said DJ is going to play as hard as she can every night, that nobody is getting an easy layup against her, and that she personally didn't have an issue with the hard foul. She even said she didn't believe Carrington intentionally targeted the neck despite having just watched the play unfold from only a few feet away. That's not the reaction of a coach who didn't see the play. That's the response of someone defending a player she coached for 2 seasons in Connecticut.
I can't believe that Stephanie White kind of stood up for Carrington. You would never see Shell Reeve, Becky Hammond doing this. You may think something, but you sit in a press conference and say that in front of your team? You don't do that. That's how you lose the team. The team will go against you. What? I'm blown away by that. You can think, oh, I used to coach her, talk to her on the side, whatever, but you don't go on national news and basically put down your own team.
This isn't a coach talking about a player she barely knows from another organization. This is someone who built a real relationship with Carrington, someone who coached her, shared a locker room with her, and understands her competitive nature on a personal level. So when the time came to describe the foul exactly as many people saw it, White chose to soften her assessment instead.
Why is Fever coach Stephanie White defending DeJohnay Carrington over her own player? That is absolutely bizarre, considering you can watch the replay of that and it was absolutely unacceptable what happened to Cunningham. Both Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Collins are wonderful role models for young children, and they play the game exceptionally well. Sophie Cunningham said that the hit by DeJohnay Carrington was intentional, but Sophie Cunningham's coach sided with Carrington. Carrington is a Chicago Sky Guard that was once coached by White. I just can't understand why the WNBA is not doing more to protect their players. When Stephanie White was interviewed, she said she doesn't oppose the foul, but she definitely doesn't think it was intentional. That Carrington plays her butt off. That's a pretty generous interpretation of what happened to Sophie.
The reaction to that press conference was immediate, and it wasn't quiet. Fans sitting courtside were visibly upset as soon as the replay appeared on the Jumbotron. Clips of the foul spread across social media within hours, collecting millions of views by the next morning. Analysts kept asking the same question over and over. How does a flagrant 2 that clearly leaves a player hurt get described by that player's own coach as something she doesn't oppose? As the criticism grew louder, the pressure on Stephanie White continued to build. And that growing pressure helps explain what happened just a few days later when White suddenly told a very different version of the story in front of a different audience and with a completely different tone.
I didn't see the play in real time. I went straight to a press conference. I thought the play got called right. Thankfully, Sophie's okay. Was it egregious? Absolutely. When you have a chance to watch that over and over and over on replay, you can see that. I didn't have that in real time.
Were there any
I take personally any suggestions that I don't 100% always have my players back. I ride with them 10 toes down all the time. All the time.
3 days after the original incident, Stephanie White stepped in front of the cameras again, and her tone was completely different. She said she didn't actually see the play unfold in real time, explaining that she went directly from the bench to a scheduled press conference and only later, after watching the replay, realized how severe it appeared. She also said she takes it personally when people claim she doesn't support her players, insisting that she stands behind every member of her roster without exception. Here's the issue. Footage from the original broadcast appears to show White looking directly at the play as it happens. She's not facing away, and she doesn't appear distracted by anything else on the bench. She's looking toward the court with what seems to be a clear view of the exact area where the foul occurred. That's why some critics argue that her claim of not seeing it live doesn't match what viewers saw on the broadcast. And once people began comparing that sideline angle with her later explanation, many felt the timeline no longer made sense.
I couldn't see it.
Say about the play in the last game. I didn't see the play in real
That's
time.
her in the back.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
I went straight to a press conference.
So you can pause it right there.
And that's her right there.
That's her in the
picture?
back, and that's the foul. What do you mean you can't see the foul?
Unbelievable.
And she says she got a better view than some of the referees got. And then this is how she comes and cries on TV about the criticism she got. How dare people on social media call her out? Go for it.
This is what really got people talking online. Someone took the original sideline footage and placed it side by side with her later press conference comments, analyzing the sequence frame by frame. It's difficult to watch that comparison and come away convinced that she completely missed the play. Her head remains focused on the action, and her eyes appear to follow the sequence from beginning to end. Whatever happened on the court, many viewers believe she saw it as it unfolded, not days later through a replay package. So why did the explanation change? The answer many people arrived at was the one few wanted to say out loud, even though they felt it was obvious. Stephanie White previously coached DJ Carrington and has a personal relationship with her. Once the criticism reached a point where it couldn't simply be ignored, Some critics argued that preserving that relationship became more important than sticking with her original account of what she had witnessed.
Were there any
I take personally any suggestions that I don't 100% always have my players back. I ride with them 10 toes down all the time. All the time. They know that. It's a shame that we can't have an opportunity to talk about what great basketball they're playing. Because they are f***ing playing. The reality is, with me, I will always lead with love. I will always lead with grace. I will always lead with humility. And I will always lead with integrity. Doesn't mean I'll always get it right. I'm also human. The hate, the fear-mongering, the divisiveness, the stuff that's trying to hijack our league will not win.
This is the part that exposes the contradiction most clearly. And it's the moment that really set social media on fire. During that same stretch of press conferences, White raised her voice at the podium and told everyone in the room and everyone watching from home that she stands by her players no matter what. She said she rides with them regardless of what anyone outside that locker room has to say. It sounded heartfelt. It sounded like a coach drawing a firm line in defense of her entire roster against outside criticism. But stand by which players exactly? Because the player who actually got hurt on that play is one of hers too. Sophie Cunningham wears the same jersey. She's on the same roster in the same locker room, and plays for the same head coach every single day. If loyalty is supposed to apply equally to everyone, then that same passionate support should have been there the moment Cunningham needed her coach to acknowledge that the hit looked as serious as it did, not 3 days later after the internet had already turned it into a major story.
She put both hands up right after. But Dejanay's not doing things half speed, right? No. Like she's swinging hard and coming.
Now, here's where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. And it's the exact reason this story didn't just fade away. Only days after the Cunningham foul, Carrington was defending Cecilia Zandalicini of the Golden State Valkyries and caught her directly in the eye while reaching for the basketball. No flagrant was called and no technical was issued, but the clip spread across social media almost immediately because of how similar it looked to the previous incident. Once again, the contact ended up on an opponent's face instead of the ball. One incident by itself can reasonably be written off as an accident. But when a second play that looks remarkably similar happens only days later against a completely different opponent, it begins to resemble a pattern that deserves closer attention rather than another easy excuse.
Now here we have her completely so far away from the basketball, just slapping Tiffany Hayes in the face. Let me just reach and see if I could grab some face real quick. Just smacking Tiffany Hayes in the face. Not really not that big of a deal. Steph, any thoughts on this one?
One of the things about Nay is that she's going to play her butt off, man. She's going to compete. Nobody's going to go walking in for a layup. And
Fair enough.
It didn't stop there. Later in that same game, Carrington also caught Tiffany Hayes across the mouth during another heavily contested possession. That's 2 separate plays resulting in contact to an opponent's face in a single outing, coming directly on the heels of the flagrant foul against Cunningham just days earlier. Go back through her career and you'll find a long list of clips from previous seasons showing a similar pattern. Hard fouls and physical plays that repeatedly end with contact above the shoulders rather than clean contact on the ball. That's not just one bad night taken out of context. That's a track record, and it makes Stephanie White's original defense, that Carrington simply plays hard, much harder to accept at face value. If this were one aggressive player having a rough week, it would be easy for fans to move on. But when the same type of dangerous contact keeps showing up across multiple games, opponents, and seasons, it stops looking like a coincidence and starts looking like a habit. And that's the kind of thing someone with real authority over a player should address directly instead of explaining away every time.
You're a performative anger, and I look at it this way. This is not an apology. This is justification, an excuse wrapped in emotion with performative outrage. That's what I think. Wow. And she's glancing at the paper there. You know, sincere apologies don't need a one-pager that was likely written by, I'll say likely, I don't know, likely written by the Fever PR flack and likely approved by the league. Every statement that goes out here, the league wants the...
I didn't even think about the league. Fever, yeah, it needs to clear the Fever PR, but clearing the league, that's an interesting perspective I have not heard yet. Did the league see this before Stephanie went out and did that? It's a very interesting point, Tom.
The uproar to stop, but they like the eyeballs. But this is going over the waterfall, and I look at it this way. If I was on the board, I would be saying to the CEO, you know what? I think this thing has gone over the waterfall here, and I think we need to make a change. We need to make a change in leadership. And if I was an owner of the
fire her.
I would fire her.
I would as well.
I would say, I don't think that was...
You can't back up the players.
That's exactly what analysts started pointing out once the second incident against the Valkyries started circulating online. Commentators who had already been skeptical of White's post-game remarks pointed to the Valkyries game as proof that their concerns weren't being overstated. If Carrington's aggressive style kept leading to contact with opponents' faces and her former coach kept finding new ways to soften the criticism, then the discussion stopped being about one hard foul. It became a question of whether White was willing to hold her former player accountable at all, or whether their personal relationship made that impossible. That's the real tension running underneath this entire story. Stephanie White coached DJ Carrington for 2 full seasons before either of them ended up where they are today. That's not a small detail, and it's not something fans invented to create drama. When you coach someone for that long, you build trust and familiarity, a relationship that doesn't simply disappear because you're now on opposite sidelines. So when the play happened directly in front of her and White's first instinct was to describe it as Carrington playing hard rather than calling it what many people believed they saw, that reaction looked to some like a coach defending a player she still felt connected to rather than evaluating a dangerous play involving an injured athlete. Then the backlash arrived, and it kept growing by the hour. Fans were openly frustrated both online and inside arenas, and reports suggested there was disappointment from people who felt the incident had been downplayed. Once that reaction became impossible to ignore, White walked back her original comments. That's when the explanation about not seeing the play in real time suddenly entered the conversation, appearing only after the outside pressure had become too loud to ignore. But for many critics, that explanation didn't hold up. They argued it conflicted with the sideline footage people later reviewed, and with the confidence she displayed during her original post-game remarks. If she genuinely hadn't seen the play unfold live, they believe her initial response would have sounded far more uncertain instead of the detailed confidence she showed when discussing Carrington's intent and competitive style. That inconsistency is what elevated this story beyond a coach choosing the wrong words once. It's the shift itself, followed step by step, that became the story. Confident defense immediately after the game. A revised explanation once the criticism became unavoidable. Then a passionate speech about standing by her players that, to many listeners, sounded like a defense of herself just as much as anyone else.
Every day these women put their on the line.
They're not soldiers. They're ball players, ma'am. They don't need to get beat up on the court.
Every day. When they go low, we go high. Love will win. Grace will win. Humility will win. And kindness will win. I stand by them. I will always stand by them. Everybody else can go to hell.
Oh, girl. Well, Stephanie, ma'am, clearly you did not stand and back your players who were deliberately being struck on the court. But somehow you made this about you. Somehow you're the victim in all of this. This is about basketball, ma'am. This is not about you. Stop playing the victim. You failed your player as a coach. There's even video out there where you are walking right past her after the stuff happened.
And that loyalty, as real as it may have been, seemed to point in only one direction. Cunningham was the player who got hurt. Cunningham was the one who needed her coach to immediately say the hit was dangerous and unacceptable. Instead, the benefit of the doubt appeared to go to the player White used to coach, while the player who actually absorbed the contact had to wait days before her own head coach acknowledged how serious the play looked. None of this requires assuming bad intentions on Stephanie White's part. Coaches build meaningful relationships over years, and those relationships can influence how people respond under pressure, often without them even realizing it. But when the footage appears to show her watching the play live, when her original comments don't seem to align with the explanation she offered later, and when a similar pattern involving the same player surfaces again that same week, it becomes harder for critics to view it as a simple misunderstanding. Instead, many came away feeling that White saw exactly what happened, chose to defend someone she had previously coached in the moment it mattered most, and only adjusted her position once the backlash became impossible to ignore. Saying you stand by your players no matter what sounds powerful at a press conference. But standing by every player equally, including the one who got hurt, is very different from appearing to take a side and hoping no one notices.
I think there's just been a lot of outside noise, but our locker room is good, and that's what it is to be an Indiana Fever on the staff. As a player, that when you come here, that's going to be one of the things that's going to try to distract you. But our locker room in there, it's tight, and we have each other's backs. Coach loves us. She didn't see the clip. At the end of the day, she didn't see the clip, and you know what, DiJonai, she is a hell of a player. She's a great defender, and so she coached her for I don't know how many years up in Connecticut. So give her flowers, and she didn't see it, and that's okay. Me and Steph are great. Steph is great with all of us, and so it's really the outside noise that's trying to distract us, but we're good.
Sophie Cunningham didn't remain quiet either. In her post-game remarks, she called the foul intentional, describing what it was like to take a hit that severe and emphasizing that she did not believe it was simply incidental contact. That clear difference between Cunningham's version of events and what her coach initially said added yet another layer to the controversy. When the player who took the hit is telling a different story than the coach standing only a few feet away, many fans tend to trust the person who experienced the contact rather than the one trying to explain it days later.
And I talked to Steph earlier in the day too, and I think we forget a lot of times, like, we're human and she has feelings, and there's moments that are really hard, and sometimes that's just the job you sign up for, but at the same time, like, it's okay to feel those emotions. And I just told her, like, I've been through the same thing. Like, there's been days where I've been really upset, and you can have the thickest skin in the world, but sometimes it does get to you. And I think our world is just like, we love to hate, we love to divide. Like, that's all we want to do. Like, nobody wants to see each other succeed, and I think that's a really painful thing for myself to watch. I feel like we need to do a better job at uplifting each other, and I can assure you there was no way we were losing this game tonight. And I told her that before the game. Like, there was no way we were losing this game for her, and it's tough. Like, that's my head coach. Like, I hated that our fans booed her before the game. That made me a little sick, to be honest.
Interestingly, not everyone in that locker room turned against White during all of this. Caitlin Clark publicly came to her head coach's defense after White faced intense criticism from fans and media members over her comments, showing that this situation genuinely divided opinion even within the Fever's own locker room. Some players clearly respected White's instinct to defend a fellow competitor around the league. Others, watching Cunningham deal with a real injury, likely viewed the entire situation through a very different lens. That split reaction may be the most revealing part of the story. This was never just about one coach making one controversial comment at a single press conference. It became a larger debate about where loyalty is supposed to lie inside a locker room, and whether a coaching relationship built years earlier with a player on another team should ever carry more weight than standing up for the player currently wearing your jersey and sitting on your own bench in pain. Until Stephanie White addresses that specific contradiction directly and clearly, rather than offering another carefully crafted explanation days after the fact, this story is likely to keep resurfacing every time DJ Carrington ends up making headlines for the same type of controversy.